Maravilla. The defiant legacy of East LA's independent barrios, rivalries, and the green light. The Maravilla gangs have a long and intricate history, deeply rooted in East Los Angeles, dating back to the late 1920s and early 1930s. Independence, internal struggles, and defiance against external forces, including the Mexican Mafia, define their legacy. This video explores the origins, structure, rivalries, cultural significance, and ongoing presence of the Maravilla gangs in the Los Angeles area. Origins and early years. The Maravilla gangs emerged in East Los Angeles in the early 20th century, forming in response to social and economic pressures faced by the Mexican-American community. Named after the Maravilla neighborhood, these gangs originally served as protective groups, offering a sense of identity and belonging. Some of the earliest gangs, such as El Hoyo Maravilla HMV, are believed to have formed in the late 1920s or early 1930s, making them some of the oldest street gangs in Los Angeles. By the 1950s, the Maravilla name became synonymous with multiple gangs operating in unincorporated East Los Angeles. The area was historically known as Maravilla and Belvedere, and at one point, even had a church named Maravilla Baptist Church at 112 North Kern Avenue. The Maravilla gangs expanded, forming various cliques that controlled different parts of the neighborhood. Over time, these groups spread beyond East LA, reaching areas such as the San Gabriel Valley, Montebello, Nevada, and the Inland Empire. Independence from the Mexican Mafia. Unlike many other gangs in Los Angeles, Maravilla has maintained a fierce independence, setting itself apart from larger criminal organizations like the Mexican Mafia La MA. Historically, the Maravilla gangs have refused to submit to La MA's authority, leading to ongoing tensions and conflicts. This resistance has led to violent clashes, internal strife, and increased scrutiny from law enforcement agencies. Cultural significance and community presence. The Maravilla community has played an essential role in shaping the cultural and social landscape of East Los Angeles. One notable historical landmark is Belvedere Park, which was built in 1942 by the Maravilla community and originally named Soledad Park. Over the years, it became a hub for sports, music, and cultural events. Belvedere Park and baseball legacy. By the 1950s, the park had been renamed Belvedere Park, serving as a key gathering place for East LA residents. The park became famous for its baseball fields, which hosted competitive leagues and games. Los Choriceros, a Mexican-American baseball team, played a significant role in promoting recreation and unity in the community. The East LA baseball leagues were the second largest for Mexican Americans, only behind Mexico City. Several players from East LA's leagues went on to play professionally in Major League Baseball (MLB). Despite multiple challenges, such as the construction of a courthouse and sheriff's station in the 1950s and the division of the park by the 60 freeway in the 1960s, the Maravilla community remained resilient in preserving its cultural heritage. Modern-day presence and influence. Today, the Maravilla gangs continue to be a presence in East Los Angeles and beyond. While their influence has shifted over the decades, their legacy remains deeply embedded in the history of the city. The gangs' defiance against larger criminal organizations, combined with their cultural contributions, has cemented their place as one of the most well-known street gangs in Los Angeles history. The portrayal of Maravilla in popular media has further solidified its reputation. Movies like Blood In, Blood Out, and American Me have depicted the harsh realities of East LA gang life, giving audiences a glimpse into a world where loyalty, violence, and survival are deeply intertwined. While law enforcement efforts and social changes have altered the gang landscape, the name Maravilla remains synonymous with East LA gang culture. The quiet streets of Maravilla may no longer resemble the battlegrounds of past decades, but the legacy of its members lives on, marking its place in Los Angeles' long and storied history. Maravilla gangs. The independent barrios of East LA. Whittier Boulevard, the heart of East LA, pulsed with live music, street vendors, and the hum of the city. Under its iconic arch stood the veteranos of Maravilla, Old-school figures with slicked back hair, creased khakis, Pendleton shirts, and Stacey Adams shoes. Maravilla wasn't just one gang, it was a network of nearly 20 independent barrios, each carving out its own identity. Like Arizona Maravilla, Ford Maravilla, Fisher Maravilla, Fraser Maravilla, Gage Maravilla, Kern Maravilla, Marianna Maravilla, and Pomeroy Maravilla, were named after local streets, while others, like Hoyo Maravilla, Times Maravilla, Juarez Maravilla, Lomita Maravilla, Lopez Maravilla, Lote Maravilla, Maravilla, Moeriya Maravilla, Raskals Maravilla, Maravilla Projects MVP, Maravilla Rifa had names tied to their own unique histories or locations. Hoyo Maravilla, the gang that stood against the Mexican Mafia. Hoyo Maravilla HMV, also known as Hoyo Maravilla, is one of the most recognized Maravilla gangs in East Los Angeles. Established around 1935, HMV has gone through multiple generations, with early members known as the Originals and the second wave called the Cherries. Over time, several cliques formed, including the Gonzos, Locos, Monstros, and Stoners. Historically significant, Hoyo Maravilla predates both the Mexican Mafia and the 18th Street Gang, standing alongside White Fence as one of the region's oldest gangs. Situated in the northwest section of East LA, near the intersection of the Pomona and Long Beach freeways, HMV has long been a key presence in the area. HMV holds a unique distinction: 17 of its top members once joined the ranks of the Mexican Mafia. However, like other Maravilla gangs, HMV resisted paying tribute to the organization, earning it the designation of a green light gang, meaning it faces open conflict with Serrano gangs and other groups aligned with the prison-based organization. Kern Maravilla. Kern Maravilla KMV is another historic gang within the Maravilla network. With roots dating back nearly a century, KMV has maintained a presence in East Los Angeles, though it is smaller than some of the other Maravilla gangs. Lomita Maravilla. Lomita Maravilla LMV was once an active gang within the Maravilla collective, but in recent years, its presence has significantly diminished. Historically part of East LA's gang culture, LMV has not been as active as other Maravilla sets. Lopez Maravilla. Lopez Maravilla is another prominent gang within the Maravilla structure. Established in the 1940s, it is one of East Los Angeles' oldest Hispanic street gangs. Though not as large as Hoyo or Marianna Maravilla, Lopez Maravilla has played an important role in Maravilla's history. Marianna Maravilla, one of the largest Maravilla gangs. Marianna Maravilla MMV is the second largest gang under the Maravilla umbrella, following Hoyo Maravilla. Founded in the 1940s, MMV controls a large territory in East Los Angeles, stretching from the 60 freeway to Whittier Boulevard, between Atlantic Boulevard and Eastern Avenue. The gang is divided into multiple cliques, including the Winitos, Cherries, Santitos, Diablos, and Pistoleras. Female members of MMV are known as Monas or Marvelous Monas. Moeriya Maravilla is a subset of Marianna Maravilla, with its own cliques, such as the Tiny Dukes, Jokers, and Sinners. Marianna Maravilla. Despite being part of the Maravilla family, MMV has also had conflicts with Arizona Maravilla AMB and Ford Maravilla FMB, highlighting internal disputes within the broader Maravilla network. Gage Maravilla Rifa, a legacy of conflict and survival. Gage Maravilla GMV, also known as Gage Maravilla Rifa GmbR, is a Hispanic-American gang based in East Los Angeles. Formed in the 1980s, GMV developed two primary cliques: the Maravilla Rifa older generation, and the Gage Boys younger generation. Members are known for wearing Green Bay Packers apparel to signify their affiliation. Like many Maravilla gangs, GMV is a tax-free gang, meaning it does not pay tribute to the Mexican Mafia. Though the gang saw a decline in activity by the mid-2010s, law enforcement reports suggest a resurgence of gang-related incidents in recent years. GMV has had long-standing rivalries with several gangs, including Dog Pound, Crazy Ass Mexicans Cam 13, Lil Eastside, Lot 13, and Jarity Loma. Unlike many LA gangs, Maravilla remained independent, operating without a centralized hierarchy. Each clique controlled its own turf while sharing a deep-rooted identity. Some factions faded, but others endured, keeping the Maravilla name alive under the watchful eye of law enforcement. For decades, Maravilla's reputation has echoed through East LA. The veteranos who once walked Whittier Boulevard remain symbols of a history that still lingers in the streets today. Rivalries and internal rivalries. Maravilla's refusal to align with the Mexican Mafia inevitably placed them at odds with many Sureño gangs. Their most long-standing and violent rivalries include White Fence. This is one of Maravilla's bloodiest and most historic feuds, spanning over 30 years and resulting in numerous violent encounters. 18th Street Gang, 38th Street Gang, Barrio Nuevo Estrada VNE, Florencia 13, Playboys 13, Jarity Loma, Dog Pound, Crazy Ass Mexicans, Lil Eastside, and Lot 13. Despite these conflicts, Maravilla has remained one of the most established and independent gang structures in East LA, refusing to be absorbed by larger organizations. Internal rivalries and power struggles. While Maravilla gangs are united in their stance against Lomita, internal conflicts have plagued them for years. Different Maravilla gangs have frequently clashed over local power struggles and territorial disputes. Attempts at peace and unity. Throughout the years, there have been efforts to unify Maravilla subsets and put an end to internal violence. 1986. A truce meeting was organized to ensure a ceasefire during the Christmas holidays. 1994. During the peak of their feud with Lomita, all Maravilla gangs in East LA agreed to a truce that lasted over a year and a half. 1995. An honorary dinner and awards ceremony was held at a local restaurant, celebrating peace efforts. Although tensions persist between certain factions, many Maravilla members continue to push for unity, hoping to preserve their legacy without the constant threat of internal division. Maravilla versus the Mexican Mafia. A defiant stand against Lomita's green light. The origins of Maravilla. Maravilla gangs trace their roots back to the early 1930s, making them among the oldest street gangs in East Los Angeles. Over decades, they developed a reputation for being independent, territorial, and unwilling to yield to external control. Unlike many other gangs that became part of the larger Sureño network under the Mexican Mafia Lomita, Maravilla rejected Lomita's taxation system, refusing to pay a cut of their profits. This defiance would set them apart and lead to one of the most significant gang conflicts in Southern California history. The rising conflict with Lomita. The relationship between Maravilla and the Mexican Mafia was not always adversarial. In the early years, some of Lomita's original members came from Maravilla gangs. However, by the 1960s and 1970s, tensions grew as Lomita sought total dominance over Southern California's gang underworld. Maravilla's refusal to submit to Lomita's control became a defining aspect of its history, setting it apart from the other Sureño gangs that complied. By the early 1990s, the conflict escalated dramatically. Lomita, enforcing strict taxation policies on all affiliated gangs, demanded a share of all illicit earnings. Most gangs complied out of fear or a desire to maintain favor. However, Maravilla, along with a few others like MS-13, Lowell Street, and Opal Street, refused to pay. This defiance led to Maravilla being placed on the green light list, a standing order for all Sureño gangs to attack them on sight. The Green Light Era 1993 to 2006. The Green Light period was one of the most violent chapters in Maravilla's history. From 1993 to 2006, Maravilla members faced relentless attacks from other Sureño gangs. In jails and prisons, they were often outnumbered and targeted, leading the authorities to segregate them into separate housing units for protection. One pivotal moment occurred at a meeting in Elysian Park, where Lomita gathered representatives from East Los Angeles gangs to enforce compliance. A member of Lopez Maravilla stood firm, refusing to pay, stating that accusations against them were false. While he was allowed to leave unharmed, the decision had already been made. Maravilla was now a direct enemy of Lote Maravilla. Another significant incident was a meeting aimed at brokering a ceasefire to end drive-by shootings. A Maravilla representative attended armed. This action only solidified Lote Marivilla's stance, ensuring Maravilla remained marked for attack. Maravilla's defiance and identity. Despite the relentless assault, Maravilla not only survived but took immense pride in its resistance. Members began calling themselves Maravillosos, the Marvelous Ones, and tagged their neighborhoods with tax-free as a symbol of defiance. Unlike most Sereno gangs that relied on Lote Marivilla's backing, Maravilla continued to operate independently, a rare feat in the gang landscape of Southern California. Even those who later turned to religion or left the gang life behind carried their history of defiance as a badge of honor. Many aging Maravillas saw their resistance not as a mistake but as proof of their gang's unbreakable spirit. Life behind bars. Facing the wrath of Lote Maravilla. When arrested and taken to the Los Angeles County Jail, Maravilla members found themselves walking straight into the lion's den. There, Lote Maravilla ordered Southsiders to assault them on sight, either through stabbings or brutal beatings. One Maravilla in his late 40s described the experience. Going to county jail was like a death sentence. You had all these Serenos who bowed down to those guys Lote Maravilla, and they were coming at us full force. As soon as you landed in a cell, you knew what was about to happen. One of them would ask, "Where you from, SA?" You say "Soy Maravilla," and that was it. They'd rush you, just start swinging. One time, I was put in a cell with a bunch of Serenos, and I knew what was coming. But when you're from Maravilla, you don't back down. Even some Southsiders admitted privately that attacking Maravillas on sight wasn't personal, it was just part of Lote Marivilla's program. One Maravilla in his mid-50s recalled an encounter with an old acquaintance. One of my homies from Youth Authority later became a Southsider. He wasn't from Maravilla but from a neighborhood near downtown LA. We ran into each other in county jail, and when no one was looking, he told me, "No hard feelings, but I gotta follow the rules. We have to go after neighborhoods on the green light list. If we don't, we get the green light ourselves." I respected that he had the guts to tell me how he felt. But I told him straight up, I'm not following those guys, Lote Maravilla. Maravilla is different. He respected that, and we went our separate ways. A fight for survival. Resisting Lote Marivilla's rule meant putting your life on the line. Many Maravillas suffered brutal stabbings in jails and prisons. Inmates crafted makeshift weapons out of metal scraps, plastic toothbrushes, and even wood, sharpening them on concrete until they could pierce flesh. They smuggled them into recreation yards and hid them until the time came to strike. Maravillas were prime targets. One veteran Maravilla in his late 60s recounted a terrifying experience. I got stabbed a couple of times in prison. The first time, a shot caller called me over and said, "I know you're from Maravilla, but I want to keep my yard peaceful." Then he told me that if I wanted to stay, I had to cross out my Maravilla tattoo. He wanted me to dishonor my barrio just to stay alive. No way. I wasn't doing it. About a week later, I was walking in the yard, and two guys rushed me. Boom, boom, boom. 3 hits, just like that. The guards came and took me to medical. A few months later, I got transferred to another prison, back in the yard. Here we go again. Some guy comes from behind and stabs me in the back this time. I let out a scream, turned around, and tried to grab the shank from him before the guards came. Back to medical again. The end of the green light in Maravilla today. By the mid-2000s, between 2005 and 2008, Lote Maravilla quietly lifted the green light. While the war had raged for over a decade, the Mexican Mafia shifted focus to other priorities, and the targeted campaign against Maravilla faded. Despite this, Maravilla remains one of the few gangs in Los Angeles that operates without paying tribute to Lote Maravilla. Today, Maravilla continues to hold its ground in East Los Angeles, maintaining its long-standing reputation as an independent force. Though times have changed, The story of their defiance against one of the most powerful prison gangs in America remains a defining chapter in gang history. From the 1950s to the 2000s, the Maravilla gangs of East Los Angeles maintained a complex, tumultuous relationship with the Mexican Mafia, known as La Mafia. In the early years of La Mafia's formation, Maravilla members were instrumental in shaping the organization. Key figures like Gabriel Little Sluggo Castaneda, Richard Rico Diaz, Luis Louis Araujo, and Rafael Chispas Sandoval, all from Hoyo Maravilla, played significant roles. At one point, Maravilla held the largest numerical influence within the Mexican Mafia in California prisons, seeing themselves as natural leaders of the Chicano prison population. However, this influence did not last without conflict. The first recorded prison homicide linked to La Mafia was carried out by Alfredo Cuate Jimenez of Hoyo Maravilla in 1961 at San Quentin, marking the start of escalating power struggles. As La Mafia evolved, high-ranking Maravilla members felt sidelined, leading to growing resentment and ultimately animosity between Maravilla and the Mexican Mafia. This shift set the stage for Maravilla's rebellion against the very system it once helped create. Despite their opposition to the Mexican Mafia, some Maravilla members maintained complex ties with La Mafia. Notably, Joe Morgan, a prominent figure within the Mexican Mafia, had strong connections to East Los Angeles and the Maravilla community. Similarly, Alfred Chato Sandoval from Arizona Maravilla became a recognized shot caller for La Mafia, illustrating the complicated and often contradictory relationships between Maravilla members and the Mexican Mafia. Maravilla's legacy, however, goes beyond its conflict with La Mafia. Deeply rooted in East Los Angeles, Maravilla gangs have left an indelible mark on the cultural fabric of the community. Many veteranos respected older gang members are regarded as legendary figures, their stories of resilience and defiance passing through generations. The nearly century-old Maravilla handball courts, established in 1928, stand as a cultural landmark, symbolizing Maravilla's enduring presence and historical significance. Historically, Maravilla also played a notable role in the Chicano movement, symbolizing resistance against oppression and external control. Their refusal to submit to the Mexican Mafia's dominance led to their classification as green light gangs, positioning them in direct opposition to the Serrano umbrella. Despite the internal conflicts among the different Maravilla neighborhoods ranging from El Hoyo to Marianna, they share a legacy of independence and resistance. While often associated with violence, the Maravilla neighborhoods also represent a rich cultural heritage that transcends gang activity. Their story is not merely one of crime and conflict but also of identity, community, and resilience. Maravilla's legacy continues to shape East Los Angeles, reflecting both the struggles and strength of the communities they inhabit.